In this video, let's take a look at the basics of art by examining the art of lighting in games together. Regardless of your preferred gaming platform, what unites players of all levels is the love of being transported to an entirely new world. Whether it's your favorite FPS game or a massive RPG, when it comes to video games, there's something for everyone in that world. Thanks to advances in GPU capabilities and real-time rendering techniques, games are getting better and better, and the quality of their immersion is increasing. What I'm about to tell you here is not a secret hiding in the dark, it's just waiting to come to light. Yes, as in real life, a big component of game aesthetics lies in its lighting. The choice of lenses, the use of shadows, the adaptation of form and atmosphere, if done right, supported by basic cinematography principles such as light color, intensity, quality and placement. It is not difficult to create truly breathtaking projects. We have already explored how these same lighting principles have evolved over time to manifest in early forms of entertainment such as pre-cinematic computer graphics and, more recently, animation. In this video, we will instead explore the use of lighting and cinematography in the making of some of history's most beloved video games and why the future is bright for this enduring entertainment medium. Let's start with setting the scene. In movies, theater scenes and games, the entire feel and tone of the project can be set by the lighting. For example, the desolate and sepia-toned landscape of Dark Souls 3 or the bright and vibrant hues of Hyrule went a long way in using lighting techniques to immerse a player in whole new worlds. Even the famous bonfires in the first installment served as a safe haven for players seeking refuge from the oppressive and nightmarish atmosphere of the Dark Souls series. In the lighting fiction of the Dark Souls 3 series, torches are, quite literally, beacons of light in the darkness, glowing with an unmistakable orange glow that changes the color tones of the world and fills players with a sense of relief when they are discovered. For all intents and purposes, players are literally led by bonfires in this game. On the other hand, the artists working on Doom 3 used the famous shadow volume as a real-time shading technique for a pioneering art achievement, giving artists a truly immersive and unique visual experience. But despite the rich, vibrant colors, intricately rendered textures and dazzling effects on display in the games, the human brain still senses that something is missing. The mind perceives that the image on the screen is just a game, an elaborate play on the mind, a collaboration of electrons, math, and shiny phosphor. Even with fancy perspective paints and texture perspective correction, on-screen rendering still lacks a real sense of depth. This is where the missing element of shadows comes in. Without them, the illusion of 3D is very incomplete. Real-time dynamic shading, which we're talking about here, and which began to be demonstrated in Doom 3, represents a huge leap forward in realism, depth perception, and the overall presence of objects in a 3D environment. And then there's Lightmatter, a game so full of the basics of lighting that no other name could do it justice. Be prepared for your brain to play various tricks on you with the shading technique used while playing the game. The lesson here is that in order to make a quality game, it is important to remember that it is a structure that includes many techniques other than just 3D modeling, rendering, animation, and coding. It is also worth mentioning that you can play the first 1 hour of the Lightmatter game for free so that you can be inspired. Still, taking a game to these high levels of escapism using lighting and knowledgeable cinematography requires a huge amount of technique, skill, and patience. No matter how fantastical or stylized the aesthetic, there still needs to be a sense of realism when lighting a game. For example, 3 light bulbs should not light a room in the same way. Bloom should not be used as a cover for below-average graphics. Instead, the use of light should enhance the artistry of the game and be chosen with intelligence in accordance with the principles of real-world cinematography. The same feeling extends beyond in-game visuals to cutscene cinematics and gameplay trailers. Previously, the PC browser game Game of Thrones, Winter is Coming, and the painstaking work the team put into making each character and location as photorealistic as possible. The main theme was that emulating the principles of real-world cinematography opened up incredible opportunities to achieve a photorealistic final result. How should light placement be set up in your game? Games are interactive. Player choice and action can instantly affect and change lighting in fundamental ways, and vice versa. But beyond a game aesthetic, there are other, more practical considerations to take into account. While the fundamentals and principles of lighting remain mostly consistent across all entertainment media, the nature of games means that their use and application differs significantly from other forms of media involving a passive audience, such as movies. Often, lighting is also used as a way to indicate a mission turning point, marker or waypoint through the conscious use of light placement that points the player in the right direction. Even if the actors are not aware of what exactly is pointing them in that direction, this technique can be used to consciously interact with the subconscious. For example, Horizon Zero Dawn's opening game comes to mind here. Player-controlled Aloy can be shown picking her way through a dark cave plunged underground, following thin streams of light from above that illuminate her path to safety. Meanwhile, stealth games typically also use light placement to support any sneaking the player needs to do to become the ultimate assassin. Light and dark are skillfully mixed to show the player exactly where they need to hide. Avoid brightly lit areas at all costs and stay in the dark to avoid being seen by your unfortunate targets. Yet players are not completely powerless in the same situations. Often, games also give players the freedom to manipulate the world situation as they see fit. You can decide to shoot a water arrow into a flame and plunge your virtual world into darkness. Or the shots fired from your gun can illuminate a previously shadowed area. Both of these are completely on-the-fly, autonomous choices. Choosing where to stand or which camera angle is best for your playstyle can affect the light rays, refractions, and shadows of the game world. These are very nuanced ways we will use lighting for gaming. For this reason, video games and the engines behind them increasingly rely on dynamic lighting to cater to player choice and judgment. Dynamic lighting supports instantaneous lighting calculations that take into account real-time changes in the game state. These can be narrative choices, camera movements, player and character positions and decisions. Because of the level of interactivity this provides, dynamic lighting lends itself well to situations where lighting is used as a game mechanic. For example, lighting or framing is a technique often used in horror games to enforce limitations in the player's field of view for an added sense of dread. 2013's Outlast, for example, was based on two vision modes. The game was based on a player vision mode, which was a normal field of view, and a night vision mode with sharp contrast seen through the player character's video camera. Only the latter allowed the player to see in dark areas, and most of the horror in the game was experienced from this forced perspective, marked by sharp, unpleasant green hues. Other games, such as Amnesia, The Dark Descent, on the other hand, used light as a way to communicate the current situation to the player, affecting the player's sanity and therefore the overall in-game aesthetic. If you stay in the dark for too long, your entire sanity can deteriorate, and it can lead to hallucinations. In contrast to this fantastical, otherworldly use of light, splitting a video game into a day and night cycle makes it much more in tune with our experience of light in the real world. This allows it to be used much more effectively than telling the player what the state of the game is. Darkwood, for example, encourages exploration and foraging throughout the day. As long as you get back to your hiding place before dark, it's an ideal escape lest what lurks in the woods make you their next meal. Here, the use of day and night is used extremely effectively to give the player a real fear of the approaching darkness. Let's take a look at the future of lighting. Where lighting was previously overlooked or created with little attention to detail means it's no longer appropriate for gamers who have come to expect more from their games, especially with the rapid and ongoing advances in hardware. This is a common theme amongst every audience, namely that we want to be as immersed as possible in what we are experiencing. When a gamer fires up their console or loads up the last place they were in the game, they want to be transported to a special place. This is where exceptional lighting techniques go a long way to make this possible, and advances in game engines are further improving the way light is simulated within a game. Still, it's worth taking a look back at the early pioneers who laid the groundwork for the game engine capabilities we experience today. One of the first 3D game engines to use light as an AI-aware gameplay element was Thief's Dark Engine. Released in 1998, Thief was the first PC stealth game to use light and sound as gameplay mechanics, and it was made very clear in the opening of the game by an unseen narrator. This emerging style of gameplay led Looking Glass Studios to develop the Dark Engine, which combined complex AI with simulation systems. Yet, Thief was before the advent of the next generation of GPUs. So, incredibly, the Dark Engine relied entirely on software. Later, in 2002, Splinter Cell used a heavily modified Unreal 2 engine to pull off GPU-based rendering that was aware of AI-aware lighting. This was the first of its kind. Game engines have evolved rapidly since then, and Epic Games has enjoyed 2 commercial incarnations of its engine since Splinter Cell, after Unreal 3 and 4. These were powerful game engines that allowed games and the light within them to do incredible things. Unreal 5 featured a micro-polygon renderer called Nanite that could scale up and down the geometric details of high-end models in real time, working in conjunction with Lumen, a new technology that offers real-time dynamic global illumination. Advances in technology like this have shed some light on what the future of video games holds, and it's safe to say that exciting times are ahead. Ever-increasing game engine and GPU capabilities are completely changing the way lighting in games works, expanding the creative opportunities for artists and designers as they create the beautiful virtual worlds players have come to know, love, and expect. Now more than ever, video games can utilize the principles and techniques of cinematography seen in movies, which is likely to lead to a happy convergence of both forms of media that will continue to narrow as time goes on. Advances in ray tracing, which involves realistic modeling of light in simulations by sending beams into the scene to calculate physically accurate lighting, offer a glimpse of what the future of video games might look like. As you can see, Minecraft's famous pixelated graphical style is transformed into something completely different through ray tracing, and it's safe to say that lighting will continue to evolve over time, opening up a whole new avenue for exploration in game making. The question then becomes, to what extent will future games embrace cinematography? How much of what we see in the movies will translate to gameplay? And how well will that translate for an audience that isn't used to seeing it in games? And then there's the virtual reality aspect. Will we see these immersive experiences more closely overlap with our favorite movies and films right before our eyes? If the next generation of video games for gamers promises to take the meaning of new worlds to a whole new level, shouldn't you already be preparing for the construction of this new world?